Going online without ExpressVPN is like not paying attention to the safety demonstration on a flight. Most of the time, you'll probably be fine. But what if one day that weird yellow mask drops down from overhead and you have no idea what to do? Nicole, Robbie, and I, we travel a lot, and we still watch those videos all the time just to give us a reminder in real time. Every time you connect to an unencrypted network in cafes, hotels, airports, your online data is not secure. Any hacker on the same network can gain access and steal your personal data, passwords, bank logins, credit card details, etc. It doesn't take much technical knowledge to hack someone. Just some cheap hardware is needed. A smart 12-year-old can do it. Your data is valuable. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person selling personal info on the dark web. ExpressVPN stops hackers from stealing your data by creating a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. It's super secure. It would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. It's easy to use. You just fire up the app on your laptop, your phone, your tablet, and click one button, and you're protected. It even works on your Chromecast. Rated #1 by top tech reviewers like CNET and The Verge. So, as I said, Nicole, Robbie, and I all travel a lot, but we also have to regularly log in to the media sites for automakers to download embargoed press information about cars before it's meant to be out there in the public. And because we're on the road a lot, we may have to log in and check on our credit card accounts, our bank accounts, or even just if we're out of the country and we want to watch something on Netflix or Hulu that we can't get overseas that may only be available here in the U.S., or vice versa if you wanted to see something, if we wanted to watch something that's not available here in the U.S. ExpressVPN allows you to do that. I've been personally using ExpressVPN, paying for it myself for several years. It's a great VPN. It works really well. I've never noticed a slowdown in speed while using ExpressVPN. It's reliable. And it's so simple to use. So secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. That's expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. And you get an extra 3 months when you sign up, all for free. expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. And we want to thank ExpressVPN for supporting the Wheel Bearings podcast. Coming up on episode 357 of Wheel Bearings, we got the Kia EV9, the BMW i7, the Ford Bronco Sport freewheeling, extra batteries on the Ram 1500. GM gets fined for excess CO2 emissions. Our small car's back. Land Rover's got a Defender Octa. The NEOS Fusilier is delayed. SCOTUS throws a monkey wrench into future regulations. And we have a special song for you at the end. All that and more coming up next. All right. This is episode 357 of Wheel Bearings. I am Sam Abuel-Samad from Guidehouse Insights.
And I am Nicole Wakeland from CarBuzz.
And I am Roberto Baldwin from SAE International, the most international of internationals.
Fancy.
So, Nicole,
yes,
what have you been driving?
I've been driving the most eye-catching car that I've had in a while, and it's not because it's expensive. It's just because it looks brilliantly ridiculous. I have the Ford Bronco Sport freewheeling, which is like this retro thing. Have you guys seen this? If you haven't,
is that the one with the multicolored stripes?
Oh, yes, it is.
It's
so
like
very 70s,
like a stradded 70s sunset.
Absolutely. And it's so funny. It arrived in the driveway, and you guys know I never know what the heck I'm getting until it shows up. It shows up. My husband's like, "That is the coolest car." I'm like, "What?" I look out the window. I'm like, "What the heck is that?" Like, I have no idea. Because even on the hood, it has the stripes. I'm like, "What? Did they accidentally deliver me a car from 1975? What has happened?"
Yeah.
So
it would be better if they had the white wheels that look like Steelies, the ones that they have on the Heritage model.
Those would be cool. But these look neat because they're, I guess it's a silver wheel, but the little pockets are red. Yeah. So it's like red. So they're really striking. And then you have, it's yellow, orange, like dark orange, red, burgundy stripes, like wide stripes that run all along the side panels. They run over the hood. So there's a huge block of them on the hood. there's red accents all over the place. Like it outlines the word Bronco, like the actual badging. And then when you look inside, it doesn't stop there. That same sort of stripe pattern is on the backs, the seat backs just below the headrest. And there's little red accents when you look in the car. Like it's sort of like there's a little cubby in the front. It's got that bright red on it. There's some red on the doors. It even has a little badge, little like, it looks like it's bolted into the center console. It says Bronco, freewheeling.
It is literally, a mid 1970s Ford Pinto cruising wagon.
Yeah, 100%. So
it's the same stripes.
It looks ridiculous, but it also looks fantastic. Like it's really kind of fun. Everywhere
I love it.
Everybody, like I go to Starbucks, that car is amazing. Oh my gosh, what is that? What are you driving? Like everyone thinks it's something really like fancy and expensive and whatever. I'm like, it's just a Bronco Sport, guys. It's really cool. On it. So it does look really neat. And it's funny because you don't often drive cars that turn heads that aren't something fancy. It's literally a luxury car. It's like a brand, I don't know, like a Lamborghini or something fancy. It's like, nope, it's just Ford. and it made everybody stop and take notice. Even my neighbors are like, what is that thing? So that was kind of neat. So it was just, this freewheeling edition is really just for kicks and giggles. It just is to have something that looks different and unique. And honestly, I kind of loved it. I loved this car. It was so fun. I'm going to be sad. I'm going to get some boring car with just regular paint tomorrow. I'm going to want to cry.
What's the paint color?
Mine's white. So it's white with all this, which I know they do it in a black too. And I kind of think in the white, it's almost cooler because it really pops on the white.
Well, you can actually get it in a bunch of colors.
Can you really?
Yeah, they have the Atlas Blue Metallic, which I think is a pretty cool look with the stripes. And there's also Eruption Green, which is also very 70s.
But the name makes me think of a zit. I can't help it.
Green.
Eruption Green.
I think the blue is a good combination with the colored stripes.
It's not. I like it. I like it when they do little packages like this that aren't necessarily something that make a car like, oh, suddenly it has more horsepower, or it can climb up more stuff, or it's just super souped up. No, like we're just going to make this look fun. Like there's no reason to do this except that it looks fun. That is 100% of the rationale behind that. And we
need more fun looking cars.
We need more fun looking cars. So I really hate this. More fun looking cars. And this is very fun. Now, pricing, it's not even crazy on pricing. So the base Bronco, which is the Big Bend, is $29,795. And this is the Bronco Sport. I keep saying Bronco. It's the Bronco Sport. This one starts at $32,395. So you're paying a little bit of a premium, but it's not like you're suddenly paying an extra $10,000 for this stuff. You're paying there's like not even $3,000. It's like $2,500 or something. So that's not bad. Like I'm cool with it.
They also have the stripes on the seats.
Yes, on the backs of the seats. It's like you think there's so much happening on the outside. Like, wow, they did a lot. This is it's inside too. Like it's everywhere. It's very cool. So $32,395. Destination, guys, want to guess?
Oh, well, it's
$1,495.
$1,695.
Oh God.
Is it $1,595?
It's $1,595. You guys are who wins?
It's a tie.
It's a tie.
Oh, it's a tie.
So
everyone gets a sandwich.
Modified prices, right, Wolves? Sam didn't go over, so technically, yeah. So this was fun to drive, and aside from it looking really snazzy, this is just like driving a Bronco Sport. It's that vehicle. So it's this nice little crossover. It's got some bold styling. This is if you don't want the Bronco with all the hardcore Bronco-ness, but you want a little bit of Bronco. Like the baby Bronco. That's how I think of it. So this is an easy car to drive. It's not, I always find the actual Bronco is too wide to me. Like even with a little guide sight, like that are sort of on the hood, it always feels like it's very wide. So when I'm pulling in a parking space, I'm a little bit nervous that I'm going to smack into the vehicle that's next to me. This is just a little bit easier dimension wise to manage. It's not this crazy powerful vehicle. It's got you know what? I'm sorry. I don't have the horsepower. I thought it was on this. It is not. 1.5 liter EcoBoost is an 8-speed automatic transmission.
I think it's about 190.
I felt like it was just under 200. Yeah, that's what I had in my head. And I thought it was on this Monroney, and it's not. Or it could be in the parts that are chopped off on the left or the right, which I didn't initially see. But this is not a car for going fast. This is just a car that you want it to be versatile. It does have capability. It can go off-road. It's fun. It's easy to put your family into. The sort of boxy design of it makes it very, very roomy. Fold the seats down and you've got plenty of room for shoving cargo in there if you're camping, whatever. So I feel like this is a really versatile vehicle. And I just like in the freewheeling, I would buy this in a second. Like I have always liked the Bronco Sport. I thought it was a good car, but then I saw this and like, oh, this one could make me shell out my cash just because I like things that are a little bit, I really like how things look. I feel like that's important. You look at that thing
Little
sitting in your
fun.
driveway all the time. It makes it fun. You want to look at your car and think, yeah, I like driving that. That makes me happy. It makes me happy to sit down and drive that. Makes me happy when other people say, cool car, that looks neat. Wow, that's really fun. Wow, that's really colorful. And that's what you get driving this. So I didn't know I would enjoy this as much as I did until I started driving around and everybody was like, what the heck is that? So if you want a car that people aren't looking at and saying like, wow, you just went crazy and spent tons of money in your show off. And instead you want a car that's like, wow, what the heck is that thing? That's super fun. That's what you get with a Bronco Sport freewheeling.
Well, and given how absurdly expensive vehicles have gotten today, you absolutely should be having some fun.
Right?
If you're going to spend that kind of money, you should be having some fun.
You should.
If you're not enjoying it, why are you spending so much money on it if you're not enjoying it?
I feel like you should enjoy the car you have. Hopefully there's a lot of, like you said, they're all expensive. Hopefully you can find one that you like. And if you can do something a little fun with it, either like a package like this or get a trim that you like or some fun color or whatever, I think it's worth it because it makes you happy and you spend a lot of time in your car. You're driving around, sometimes you're stuck in traffic. At least be stuck in traffic in something that makes you smile.
And the 1.5 liter is 181 horsepower and 190 foot-pounds of torque.
Thank you, Sam. Apologies for not having that at the ready.
It's totally fine.
No worries.
Sorry.
I saw a Ford Lightning Triton, before the Ford Lightning, the Triton.
Yeah.
Ford,
The
from like
old
the late
one?
90s. Yeah. And it had I dropped an image in the chat of the cool like paint job that it had. I was like, yeah, it's got like checkered flag. It's got like a checkered flag and it's like yellow.
Turquoise and see,
turquoise,
that's fun.
little
Let the guys have fun with
scratches.
the car.
Not far from here, there's somebody has an old late 1970s Chevy Love pickup,
Yeah.
which was back when compact trucks were actually like compact. And it's I one of these days I got to get a picture when I'm driving by and it's out there. It's brown.
UV. I didn't even know this truck.
For a light utility vehicle.
Oh, it's so cute. It's a tiny little thing. I just found one.
And this one is brown, and it's got the multicolored stripes down the side, kind of like the Bronco Sport.
That's perfect.
And that mixed in with a healthy dose of rust, it makes
Of course.
perfect.
Chevy Love. Yeah, I was actually talking to someone about the Chevy Love 2 days ago.
Were you
really?
somebody buying one or has one?
No, it's just for some reason we're talking about mini trucks and the Chevy Love popped
And
up.
that's the one that came up.
It was like the mini truck you could get. It was less expensive than the Toyota or the Nissan hardbody or for mini trucking. And so you can get a Chevy Love for pretty cheap in the 80s, and then you could slam it and make it look cool.
Yeah, back starting in the late 70s until the early 80s, when they launched the S10 and the Ford Ranger, Chevy and Ford offered Japanese-built compact pickups. So the Love was built by Isuzu, and Ford had the Courier, which was built by Mazda. And they sold those for a few years until they introduced their own smaller pickups, which were larger, but still by today's standards, quite compact.
Yeah.
Ford Courier. I had a teacher. No, he had the Volkswagen. Another teacher had the Ford Courier.
The Volkswagen pickup.
Yeah, the Volkswagen pickup. Yeah, the Rab pickup, and he was the ag teacher, so it was really fun.
Oh,
yeah. There you go.
Do you remember the Dodge Rampage?
I do remember the Dodge
Rampage. the Rampage was like Chrysler's take on the Rabbit pickup. So it was a little unibody pickup truck based on the Omni.
Oh, it's squishy looking.
There's a series on Netflix that it's the guy who used to be
with Will Arnett.
With Will Arnett, and he drives a Dodge Rampage.
Yeah.
Does he really?
And every time he goes out and get his Rampage, I'm like,
it's orange, I think.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah. See,
like a
the only place where you'll almost the only place where you'll still see a rampage. Most of them have long since turned back into iron oxide.
You say they rusted to death at this point, I would imagine.
Yeah, same with the Loves and the Couriers, and unless they've been extremely well cared for, they're long since decomposed.
Yeah, unless they're in Southern California, they're probably gone.
Yeah. All right.
Dry heat.
Well, yeah, but if you take it to the beach a lot, then you're going to get exposed to salt water, and it's still
No,
gonna
it's not
rust.
all beach here. We still got a lot of space here in the States.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, Robbie, what have you been driving?
I've been driving a Dodge Rampage for the last 2 weeks. Fantastic. I have been driving the BMW i7. You know, the big fancy BMW.
Ooh, you are fancy.
It's going, it's head to head with the EQS and the Lucid Air. The i7 is their big luxury vehicle that, for people who sit in the back, actually delivers luxury, like for reals, not for like, oh, it's it's nice in the back. And they're like, no, you can get in this back, and the seat like reclines back. Some of them, like the one I had, didn't have the giant screen, but they have a giant screen that folds down that you couldn't really test because you had to have an Amazon account that was tied to your BMW account. But you could turn it on, so it looked nice.
Yeah. You could play the demos.
Yeah, you could play the demos, and then the controls, the seat controls, and the controls in the background, little tablets in the door handle.
Can you imagine sitting in the back of an i7 and watching Dune on that screen?
Oh, right?
Yeah,
man,
that'd be cool.
That'd be pretty cool. All the Dunes. You get the David Lynch Dune, and then the 2 new Dunes, and then you watch the documentary.
What do you like better, the old Dunes or the new Dunes? The new one.
I think the new Dune does a better job at actually telling the story of Dune, but I have a soft spot in my heart for the old Dune, just because they just like, hey, you just did Eraserhead. How about you do this movie? And they just took it away from him, and they sort of like messed him around. And poor David Lynch has got.
I've never seen the old one in its entirety. I've seen bits and pieces of it here and there, but I've never seen the whole thing.
I love that the inner dialogue is like whispered over screen. I love the costuming.
The witches were really scary.
And the set design is just fantastic. Exactly what you expect from David Lynch. But some of the special effects aren't so hot.
Well, it was 1984. I mean,
yeah.
You got to look at the true vision of 1984.
Yeah. But if you didn't have the ability to do the kind of sandworms you can do with CGI today.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you look at the Dune today, it borrows heavily from that other Dune, because there was no visual representation really of Dune besides Aronofsky's vision, which ended up being sort of pulled away and used in Aliens and a bunch of other movies. And I'm going super deep film nerd. I'll stop. That's why you had a film degree. Anyway, yeah, the ultimate driving machine, whatever you want to call it. So I had the i7 eDrive 50 sedan with the 20-inch wheels, so I didn't have all-wheel drive. Don't need all-wheel drive. I didn't have the an M. Nope, don't need that. And I drove it probably about 1,000 miles over the last few days. I drove it down to LA and back. On the way, I went to Tehachapi, which is my little hometown, and drove it around there. And it is such a nice road trip machine. 303 miles. 301 miles is the EPA. What the EPA says it'll do. So I'm driving. So the speed limit on Interstate 5 is 70 miles an hour, which means I set my cruise control to 80 miles an hour. I'm getting past it, people doing 95 miles an hour, but that's not neither here nor there. So it was at a minimum, once I got away from my house, like 10 miles, 15 miles away, boom, it's 100 degrees. Now it's 100 to 115 degrees the entire time I'm driving around.
It's too hot.
Yeah, so I had the air conditioning down like 65, 67, trying not to burst into flames as a human. And on the way down south, I averaged 2.9 miles per kilowatt hour, which is pretty good. That
is not bad.
290-ish miles. On the way back, on the way down, there's always like a tailwind. On the way back, there's always a headwind. And on the way back, 2.6 miles per kilowatt hour. So I averaged it out to 2.75 miles per kilowatt hour is what I got while driving this vehicle. So with intense heat, blaring the air conditioner in a giant car, it's also really big.
Yeah.
I'm the only person in there, but I was getting 279.675 miles of range.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That out of 301 miles. And there were times where I was passing people and accidentally going way too fast because it's still a BMW. It's still like, you step on the gas, it's going to go. It's still got EV torque. It's still, it has all the things that you would expect from a high-end BMW. But yeah, no, it was,
And so, if
I
you're
was
driving
really
this thing around
surprised.
town, you're going to do well over 300.
Oh yeah, you're gonna get like 3.5, 3.5. I have to drive it around the town today and tomorrow to do some video with it, and I'm sure I'll reset it again and see what it does. But no, it's really efficient, especially for the size and what it is, and the fact that I was battling intense heat. I couldn't at one point. I stuck my phone on the driver's seat, so I just kind of toss it over in the corner, and
Yeah.
and it was doing CarPlay, and after 10 minutes the phone overheated because of the sun coming in and hitting the phone. That's how hot it was. All of a sudden it's all boom, CarPlay shut down, and my phone's all we have to wait until your phone goes back to normal temperatures so you can do the thing.
Sorry, can't help you now.
Yeah, sorry, I can't do the thing anymore. This one also had the driver assistance pro package. I was really fortunate. I thought I was going to hit a lot of traffic over the holiday weekend. Not really. Nothing too bad. So I never actually used the hands-free portion of it, but I've used it a bunch of times. It works fine when you're going really slow in traffic. Driving on the freeway, did great, doing 80 miles an hour. It slowed down when cars pulled out in front of me. It sped up when they got out of my way. It stuck to the lines. It didn't fight me too much. When BMW brought out its adaptive, so it has the many levels of regenerative braking that we all know and love. They also have this adaptive one, and the first time I used it, I did not like it. It felt like it was doing things unexpected, which is not what you want from anything your car is doing.
You
I
want
feel like
predictability.
I want predictability, and I feel like since that first drive, like 6 months later, I drove another BMW that had it, and it just felt better. And on this vehicle, once I put it on adaptive, I was like, oh, this actually works well. And it works really great in the mountains. I was driving the mountains a couple times. And if you have this big, long downhill with this like huge runoff, like you probably, instead of trying to do regenerative braking, which means I had to put my foot on the accelerator at the bottom to do the runoff and go back uphill, if it just lets the car glide, it would just glide for miles, like literally miles, back up a hill, down a hill, mass, gravity, whatnot. So yeah, no, I'm a big fan of what BMW's been doing with their EVs. I know the packaging is always going to be, a little bit weird because they are building, PHEVs and gas versions on all these vehicles. So it's one essential, one platform that works with all these different powertrains. So because of that, you still have a tunnel, and you don't have a frunk, and you don't have, there's all these other things. But I think people get in these and they're like, I just want a car that I like. I just want the BMW, and this BMW is an EV. There you go. That's the big difference. If you get in the car, if you're not driving it, you probably don't know until you realize it's quiet. I'm a big fan of the i7. Really, the i5, the i4, the iX. They're all just really good, luxury, German sport vehicles. So they should be super stoked. The last thing to be stoked about is how expensive this is. Again, it's
it is
the
a German luxury sedan.
It is a German luxury sedan that really delivers on the luxury part. So the starting price is $105,700.
Ow.
The version I was driving, because it is a German luxury sedan, with the destination, $130,395.
Oh my Lord.
So, a house.
Yeah.
In some parts of the country. And in California, a really nice down payment on a house.
A down payment.
Yeah, a nice down payment on a house in California, a house in other parts of the world.
You used to be able to get a house for that kind of money around here, but not anymore.
It's Yeah, we need more houses so we don't have to pay so much
Yeah.
for houses. Let me see what else. I think that might be it. No, I dig it is what I'm trying to say. I dig it. Rear wheel drive, 20-inch wheels, good. I don't need anything bigger. I don't need all wheel drive. It's just nice, easy cruiser. It's a 400 volt system, but it charges at, I believe, up to 205 kilowatts. So it's like really just pushing the top of that 400 volt architecture. So that's really nice. The Neue classes will be 800 volts, so you'll get a better charging curve, and you'll be able to charge above 200 probably. I'm guessing with BMW, they'll probably try to hit 250. What do you think the destination charge was for this very expensive, very large vehicle?
I'm gonna go with 1985.
I'm gonna go $14.95.
Sam wins $9.95.
Oh wow! I was going totally the wrong direction.
$9.95.
Wow!
Let me double check. I'm looking at the Monroe. Yep, $9.95.
Wow!
$9.95.
Cheap eats. I mean, for that,
Yeah.
the rest of the car.
Yeah, you're also you're paying $129,400. No, $400 for it, and then you only pay an extra $9.95 for the whole thing. But it's a great road trip vehicle. You're getting 300 miles of range. I was talking on Blue Sky the other day about people who keep insisting they need 500 miles of range, and I was saying, that's not really a thing that you really probably want, because you're probably gonna have to pull over and pee. And I talked about how I drove like 750 miles twice in the span of a few days, and because of my job, we drive a lot of cars, a lot of long distances. And so I'm an edge case, and even I'm like, yeah, this is fine because I got to get out and use the restroom or whatever. And as soon as I got in this car, 30 minutes later, I'm like, well, I got to pull over to pee. I'm like, I am the edge case. I drive for hundreds of miles before I have to pee. Nope, 30 minutes. Anyway, BMW i7 2024. Good car.
Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia. All right. Well, I had the 2024 Ford Flex EV. No, just kidding. It's the Kia EV9 GT line all-wheel drive. But as much as I've seen the EV9 over the past year, I don't know why it never clicked in my brain before that this is basically the new Ford Flex. If you look at kind of the overall profile, it's just slightly bigger, but not that much bigger.
But I didn't like how the Ford Flex looked. I hated the seam, like the crease on the door, like little. It made it look like where the faux wood paneling would be on an old like Grand Wagoneer, but they forgot to put it on. Like whoops, and they just put little creases in the door instead.
It's like paneling. It's like vinyl paneling outside your house, like metal paneling.
Yeah. Weird. I didn't like it. I never drove it, so I don't know what it was, but I didn't like how it looked.
I liked driving the Flex. We took
I liked the Flex a lot.
Last day, like 2009, I think. Mm-hmm. We took one when it first launched. We did a family vacation up in northern Michigan and drove one up to near Traverse City for a week. And two kids, they were tween. Roughly at that point. And all our stuff for a week. And it was great. It was a fantastic road trip vehicle. Very comfortable, quiet, really nice place to spend a week. And all of that is exactly true for the EV9 as well. Great family hauler. I would still love to see somebody do, a reasonably priced electric minivan too. But
a Carnival.
It looks like the only electric minivan in the pipeline right now is the ID Buzz. But given that where the market is and the market wants SUV like vehicles, this is a fantastic option. I really like the way it looks. It's different. It doesn't look like a bubble. So it's aerodynamic, but it doesn't really look aerodynamic. And it doesn't look like a monster truck or anything like that. It's very much not an off-roader. I mean, this is an on-road wagon. It's a big station wagon. This is the 2024 equivalent of a Dodge Monaco from the 1970s, or a Chevy Caprice wagon or something like that. I forget what the Ford equivalent was in those days, but that sort of vehicle, 3-row. The one I had is the GT line, which is currently the top of the lineup, and it had the second row relaxation captain's chair package, which I'll get to in a minute. So it's a 6-seater. But you can also get it with a bench seat in the second row. So it becomes a 7-seater. Even the third row is reasonably roomy for adults. Robbie would probably be a bit cramped in there, but for like myself, 5'10", 5'11", I can sit back there reasonably comfortably. And it's got lots of features. You got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. One of the drawbacks, still, as good as all of the Hyundai and Kia and Genesis EVs are, the eGMP platform vehicles are, the navigation to charging stations still kind of sucks. They still have to fix that.
It's like it gives you arrows to like places, but like it's like this isn't helpful at all.
Well, and often there are places that are behind you, like 50 miles behind you.
That's not helpful.
There's a bunch of places behind you. I'm like, no, that's not where I want to go. What I learned is that, especially with my cars, it's easier to do it on the app.
Yeah.
And then send it to my car, because if I try to do it in the car, I'm like, this is just annoying.
Yeah. But other than that, the two other minor annoyances are where they put the start stop button on this stock, which is also serves for gear selecting on the transmission, and you it's hidden behind the steering wheel. You can't really see it. But once, now having driven it now for a week and having driven it for a couple of days previously, I know where it is. I can reach under there and press the button with my thumb, and I don't even really have to look at it anymore. And then the other annoyance, there's 3 screens. There's 2 12.3-inch displays. One is the instrument cluster right in front of the driver. And then there's the 12.3-inch touchscreen in the center for the infotainment. And then there's another smaller display in between the two, which has some of the climate control stuff. So you have some of the more detailed climate control things. Fan speed, temperatures, those are on toggles that are right on the dashboard. So you can just reach down, toggle the temperature up or down, toggle fan speed up or down. Those work great. That's pretty much all you need most of the time. But if you want to turn on the defoggers or anything like that, you have to hit this center touchscreen, this smaller touchscreen that's in the middle, which, for pretty much almost any driving position, the steering wheel basically cuts right across it, and you can't see it. So you have to lean over.
You're just driving. You got to like lean to the right and look. Like, oh, okay, hold on, click. There we go. Now back to driving.
So many automakers aren't really thinking about that. It's like, this looks so cool. I'm like, yes, but there's a steering wheel there. It's a great idea, guys. Steering wheel.
So I don't know what they were thinking with that. I'm sure they will fix that. When they do a mid-cycle update. You can get the EV9 with 3 different powertrain options. The base setup, rear-wheel drive, 201 horsepower, 258 foot-pounds of torque. Then there's the mid-level all-wheel drive setup, which is probably what most people are going to buy. 379 horsepower, 443 foot-pounds of torque. And then the GT line has the same 379 horsepower, but bumps the torque up to 516. You don't really need it. It doesn't, you're probably not going to notice the difference. It's a quick vehicle, any way you look at it, with the all-wheel drive.
It's speedy.
It's fine.
Yeah, it is more than fast enough. I have yet to get my hands on a rear-wheel drive one. I've heard some people complain that it's a little slow, but I think with the torque it's got, it should be fine for most people as well.
I think I drove the rear wheel drive one. It was fine. I was like, this
Okay.
is fine. I don't know why people are. Yeah.
The
you get 304 miles of range with the rear wheel drive.
Yeah.
So
and the battery, there's a standard range battery, which is I think the 77.4 kilowatt hour battery, the same one that you find in the EV6, the Ioniq 5, and the Ioniq 6, and then the extended range battery, which is what you should just buy if you're going to get one of these, 99.8 kilowatt hours. With the all-wheel drive, it's EPA rated at 270 miles of range. But when I first got into it, it was showing, 340 miles of available range on a full charge, and that was with driving it around for the first couple of days, mostly just on the street, around town. I was getting 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour in this quite large vehicle. And so if that is most of your driving, if most of your driving is not highway driving, you will absolutely get a minimum of 300 miles with even with the all-wheel drive version. The rear drive version is rated at 300, just over 300, and you'll get way more than that driving around town. The last few days I've been mostly driving on the highway, and it's been hot, so I've had the air conditioning on. Not quite as hot as California, but it's been quite toasty, and so I've had the AC on. Driving on the highway at 75, 80 miles an hour, it's been averaging about 2.7 miles per kilowatt hour, which is basically right on that 270 mile range. So worst case conditions, you're going to hit that 270 miles, which is fine for most people. And then, if you're driving mostly around town, you're easily going to get well over 300. And with a balance of city and highway driving, you're probably going to get around 300 miles on a charge. And this thing charges really fast. Not quite as fast as the smaller battery vehicles. So it's limited to, I think, like 211 kilowatt hours as opposed to the 234 that the EV6 and the Ioniq 5 and the GV60 get. But one of the things with all of these Hyundai and Kia vehicles is the thermal management on the battery is handled so well that with most vehicles that have fast peak charging rates, like Teslas, for example, or Ford vehicles, they will peak, they'll hit that peak. Teslas will peak at about 25% state of charge. And then from there, they start ramping down. So when you're at 50, you're getting maybe, 120 at best. And by the time you're at 75, you're down in the 50 to 60 kilowatt range. With these vehicles, they will maintain their peak charging rate all the way out to at least 50%. And I've had them, stay, like with some of the smaller vehicles, I've had them stay, close to 240 kilowatts out to about 55% or more. And with the EV9, it will, same thing, it'll be doing over 200 kilowatts, out to that 55, 60% range. And I've had them, when it's at 75% state of charge, still doing 170 kilowatts. So you will, if you're on a road trip, you will get that 10 to 80% charge in about 22 minutes. Assuming of course, you can find a properly working DC fast charger, which is a whole other issue. Well, but if you find a working charger, the vehicle will charge that fast, which, if you're taking a road trip with the kids, you're going to want to stop every couple of hours and, take a potty break and, get some snacks and things like that, or rearrange things, make sure you get the kids tied down tight again, because they'll get loosened up after a couple of hours.
They wiggle
always wiggling, always with the wiggling.
Yeah. Always the wiggling around.
So the GT line that I had, it had two options: the ocean blue paint, which numerous people give high marks to. So they really like, and I really like the color too. I think it's a great color. And then the second row relaxation package, which gives you second row captain's chairs with ottomans that come up, so you can recline the seats back, put up the ottomans, and really kick back in those second rows. And strangely enough, they also put those ottomans on the front seats in the GT line as well. Passenger is fine. I'm not sure why it's there for the driver, unless maybe if you're doing a charging break,
that's what I
want
think.
to lay back.
Yeah,
That's
their whole thing was a charging break. Like if you're charging somewhere, you just want to kick back and relax. The little ottoman pop up.
Okay, so that's $2,000 for the second row captain's chairs. $695 for the ocean blue paint, and then the carpeted floor mats and cargo mat for another couple $100. Altogether, including delivery, $78,430.
Now, just get the light long range starting at $59,000.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Get the light long range at $59,000, and you're in much better shape. And about 3 weeks ago, they started production of EV9s at Kia's West Point, Georgia assembly plant. So by the time those, over the next month or so, as those start to get to dealers, they will be eligible for the $7,500 tax credit on a purchase. Mm-hmm. Kia already does the $7,500 on a lease for the Korean built EV9s. But if you want to buy one, you'll be able to buy one in the next couple of months and get that tax credit on there. For that light long range, 59, now you're looking, 52 and a half, 53,000. And, that's in the same ballpark as a nicely equipped Telluride or Explorer or Palisade. And frankly, I would probably take this over any of those.
It's a really, really nice vehicle. When I had one, my wife's like, "Oh, maybe we should get this." I'm like, "It's a little much for us because there's just two of us. It's just too much car."
But I drove it up that big.
Yeah. Even with the dog, we're like, we don't need this much room. But yeah, I took it up to Tahoe when I had it, and it was great. It was great on snowy roads and no problems. It's fantastic. It's comfortable. Charged really quickly whenever I pulled over to charge. Yeah, I dig it.
Yeah.
It's a great vehicle. I mean, it really is good.
I guess that's why it won all those awards.
Might have a little something to do with it.
I just had to write a story about why it won all those awards and talk to all these different jurors, like all the juries. World Car won something, Women's World Car won something, North American Car Truck Utility of the Year. What? Like everybody's like, that's just stop the voting. Just give it to Kia. They're going to win.
Yeah. That's kind of what's been happening the last few years.
It's good.
Yeah, I mean it's alternating back and forth between Kia and Hyundai, and and they deserve it because all these eGMP platform vehicles are really outstanding. They're really well executed. The only thing they don't do well is charge on a Tesla supercharger because of the 800 volt architecture.
Yeah,
they're limited to charging at about 84 kilowatts, which is not bad. That's not terrible, but it's not great for a road trip. Yeah. So if you are doing a road trip, you probably want to try and find an EA or EVgo charger that does 350 kilowatts. Mm-hmm. And if you can find those, then you're golden.
They got to do a software update for the eGMP.
They're working on it.
Yeah, so maybe by the time if you get one, and by the time that I think at the end of the year, they're going to start giving out adapters is what I got from Hyundai, which means it'll probably be from Kia as well. So they'll have the software out for those vehicles by the end of the year. The update that'll let them charge quicker than 84. Yeah, because at first I went to the Magic Dock Tesla. I was like, well, this isn't. I mean, fine, 84 is fine, whatever. But yeah, it's not what I was expecting. I'm like, why is this taking so long? And then I went to the EA station and charged much quicker. And I'm like, Yeah.
All right. So that is what we were driving. I do want to give a little bit of an update on the Ram 1500 that I talked about a couple weeks ago. Oh. There was, on the last day I had it, there was one minor issue that popped up. And when it happened, after it happened, I sent a note to my contacts at Stellantis, let them know what had happened. They came and picked it up. They checked it out, and they diagnosed the problem. And what had happened, something had happened when the truck was being serviced. So this wasn't a design issue. One of the battery terminals was not tightened up properly. And what happened was I was in a parking lot, and I was stopped. I was waiting. Somebody else was pulling into a parking space. So I was, paused there for a moment. Was in drive, had my foot on the brake, and all of a sudden the whole truck just shut down. Just everything powered down. And I waited a couple seconds, put it back in park, pressed the start stop button, fired up. Everything worked fine. And after I let my Ram contact know, he said, okay, we're going to come and pick it up, and we need to check this out and figure out what happened. So it turns out that on these new 2025 Rams with the Hurricane 3-liter inline six, they actually did something a little different. In the past, in the previous models with the V6, with the Pentastar V6, and with the 5.7 liter Hemi, they had a 48 volt mild hybrid system on there, or the eTorque system. And the Pentastar still has that. But for the Hurricane, instead of doing the 48 volt mild hybrid, they did something a little bit different. So one of the advantages with the 48 volt system is because you've got a higher voltage battery rather than a 12 volt. You can, when you do stop start, you can shut off the engine sooner. You can leave it off longer and still have enough power to power all your vehicle systems and accessories. Well, that's great, but going 48 volt does add some cost to the vehicle. So what they did when they developed the Hurricane is they actually came up with a 2 battery system. And I think that this is also on the Wagoneers as well. So there's actually 2 12 volt batteries, not just one. And the way the system is set up is one battery is used exclusively for starting the engine, just to crank the engine. That's all it does, not used for anything else. And then the other battery is used to power vehicle systems when the engine is shut off. And normally with a 12 volt stop start system, they, in the software, they have to monitor the battery voltage and everything, and, look at the loads like air conditioning and lights and, all the other, stereo and everything else in the vehicle. And if you've got a lot of loads on there, then it will, once the battery hits a certain level, the 12 volt battery hits a certain level, it has to restart the engine so that you make sure you start it while it's still got enough power to actually crank the engine. Well, in this case, because they're using a separate battery for all the vehicle systems, and then the other battery is exclusively for starting the engine, you can actually leave the truck, leave the engine turned off longer. And I was wondering about this when I was driving it, because it did seem that it was keeping the engine shut off for much longer, more like a 48 volt system than I was used to. But I knew there wasn't a 48 volt system on this engine. And this is why, and then the accessory battery, they can let that run down a little deeper because they don't have to worry about using that one to crank the engine, to restart the engine. And so it lets them get a little better fuel economy by keeping the engine off longer and still have quick restarts. Well, at some point prior to the truck arriving in my driveway, it had been in for service. By the time I had it, it had about 10,000 miles on it. It had been in the dealer for normal, oil change, other service. And apparently at some point they had disconnected the battery, the accessory battery. And the terminal, when they reconnected, it was not tightened up properly. So it was loose. So it wasn't getting charged properly. And so this is why all of a sudden everything just shut down, because the battery got to a level where it was too low and it just shut everything down. And so they tightened that back up, and there haven't been any additional problems with it. But if you get one of these vehicles that has this engine, so either the Wagoneers or the Rams, if you are, if you're having any service done on it or you're doing any work on it yourself, you got to make sure that you tighten up the terminals on both batteries. Otherwise, you could run into a little problem.
Details.
But it's a cool solution that they came up with. It's significantly lower cost than doing a 48 volt system, but gets you pretty much all the benefit of the 48 volt system. And as long as the battery terminals are tight, it works great.
It works outstanding as long as you tighten things. It's kind of like life in general, or anything with vehicles.
Just keep your terminals tight.
If you just tighten things correctly, they're less likely to break.
Yeah, funny how that works.
Wheels, engine mounts, anything. Bicycle tires.
Let's see. Let's go to GM. Earlier this week, I got calls from several reporters about a GM settlement with the EPA, because it turns out that about 2.5 million GM vehicles were emitting too much carbon dioxide, too much greenhouse gas.
Oops.
Yep. And so I did a little digging, and they, as a result of this settlement with the EPA, they're paying $145.8 million in fines to the EPA. And they're also surrendering 50 million tons of CO2 credits. And the way it works with fuel economy and CO2 emissions is, for corporate average fuel economy and for CO2 emissions, manufacturers get targets that they're supposed to hit for each of their vehicles. And if they exceed those targets, then they can earn some credits, some fuel economy credits and some CO2 emissions credits that they can use in later years. So if say they earn some credits in 2021 and 2026, the standards have bumped up high enough, and the manufacturer hasn't been able to keep up, and they fall short of their targets, they can use the credits they earned in prior years against their shortfall to avoid paying fines. And then, eventually they run out of credits, and then they either have to get it resolved or start paying fines. So GM had earned a bunch of CO2 credits and on these vehicles. And it turns out that part of the way the rules are written is it's not just the emissions for the CO2 part of it, at least. It's not just the emissions they have when the vehicle's brand new, when they're doing the certification testing, but it also has to continue hitting those thresholds, for at least 8 years of the vehicle's life. And so one of the things EPA does is they periodically bring in vehicles from different manufacturers. They will reach out to customers, with vehicles in the field. And we actually had this happen once, about 15 years ago. We got a letter from EPA saying, "Hey, we've randomly selected your vehicle to be tested. Would if you want to participate." And our car had about 40,000 miles on it at the time.
I didn't know that. That's kind of
cool. And if you want to participate, we'll take your car for 2 weeks. We'll give you a loaner car, and we'll pay you, I think it was like $200 or something like that.
Okay.
And so they take the cars to the EPA lab in Ann Arbor, and they do the testing on vehicles that are in-service vehicles to verify that, that they are continuing to hit the emission standards for the 8 years. Well, it turns out that some of these GM vehicles, it was mostly full-size trucks and SUVs, but also I think Equinox and Terrain compact utilities. When they were doing the follow-on tests, they were fine when they were new, but in the follow-on years, they were falling short of their targets. And so EPA, went after GM. They fined them, and GM had to relinquish 50 million tons worth of CO2 credits on these vehicles.
Oh,
wow. That's
So,
not great for GM. I didn't know they
No.
did that. I literally didn't until you told me this. I didn't know that they tested them to make sure that they wasn't just when they were new. I thought if they did it when they were new, then they were all set. I literally
Yeah.
did not do this.
No, they do follow on tests periodically. They don't test every single vehicle, but they'll pick stuff at random, and basically, do audits, and bring them into the EPA lab. They'll test them. They'll actually drive them on the hookup, test equipment and to the vehicle, drive them on the road, do it in the lab. And then verify that it's still meeting emissions requirements for that 8-year period after the vehicle's in service.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of cool. I guess that makes sense.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Nifty.
Yep.
Unless your vehicle doesn't make it. Then it's
then it's not so nifty.
very not nifty.
Yeah. So there's 5.9 million vehicles that were affected.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So more than 2.
Yeah. So I'm guessing that there's probably going to be some sort of class action lawsuit against GM for this as well, and the owners of these vehicles will probably get a check for $200 or credit for $200 towards the purchase of a new GM vehicle
somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
Because it takes
5-10 years from now.
Yeah, exactly. They won't even have the car in there anymore. They'll be like, my car was what?
Yeah. All right. So are small cars back? Do you think?
I'd like to think that they would come back. I like small cars, but it's scary to drive a small car when everything else out there is the size of a Sherman tank.
Well, the sales of the Mitsubishi Mirage were up 85% in Q2. Yeah. Now, granted, they were pretty low in Q2 of 2023.
Is that a very dramatic increase or not really?
It's one of those, was it not the law of large numbers, but it's when you're starting from a low point, a relatively modest absolute increase can be a very large percentage increase.
Yes.
And we sold 4 cars.
Woo-hoo, doubled our sales.
But along with this, actually Nissan Versa did pretty well. I can't remember the total numbers for the Mirage. Let's see. So the Mirage sales went from 5,316 in the first half of 2023 to 9,862 in 2024.
That is a lot of cars, especially for Mitsubishi, which is kind of almost invisible in this country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Mirage, or rather the Nissan Versa, I think they sold about twice that many of the Versa. So they did all right. But Jim Farley was at the Aspen Ideas Festival a couple of weeks ago and did an interview there. And one of the things he was saying was that, Americans need to get in love with small cars again. It's like, yeah, but you don't make any small cars.
Like, who is this man?
It's from the company who makes the F-150 Raptor drive over everything. Like you're making these gigantic cars because people like them, and I get it. You're selling what people want, but if you're telling us all you gotta love small cars, then make a good small car that people can afford. Go make one, then maybe we'll buy it.
Yeah. And don't put a Getrag dual clutch transmission in it.
Yes, like make them decent. Just make a decent one, and we'll consider buying it.
Nice car.
Yeah, I mean, the Fiesta and the Focus were actually really good cars, except for those transmissions.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Ford is working on a small EV that's supposed to come out in 2026. Apparently, that's supposed to cost $25,000. So I think he's talking up the idea of small cars again.
Isn't everybody Jeep's working on a small vehicle that's supposed to?
Yeah, Jeep's going to have a new Renegade, electric Renegade.
Yeah, so that's like the thing.
Price range.
Like fill in the blank company is working on a car under $25,000.
All it takes is one company to do something, or they see something, and everyone. And it's like the Maverick. All it took was one, and now Toyota's like, allegedly Toyota's working on a small truck, and everyone's like, we got to make a small truck now because the Maverick's doing really well.
Yeah.
All it takes is one, people.
I like small cars. I am a fan of small cars.
I love small cars.
I like small cars too. Small cars too. Words
as well.
They're so much easier to park.
In addition to large cars, I like small cars.
Yeah. All right. The Land Rover Defender Octa.
Does that make anyone else just think of Doc Ock, the supervillain from Marvel? Is it Marvel?
Now.
Yeah, Dr.
You're welcome. That's when I saw Octa, all I could think is like Doc Ock has a car.
Well, what's Doc Ock up to?
I know.
So the Octa, the drive describes it as Britain's 626 horsepower answer to the word Raptor, which is it's in the right ballpark. Yeah, it's a 4.4 liter twin turbo V8 with a 48 volt mild hybrid system, making 626 horsepower, 553 foot-pounds of torque. Stuff it into a Defender, put some big wide fenders on it like a Bronco Raptor, and charge an enormous amount of money for this thing. 0 to 60s under 4 seconds, 155 mile an hour top speed. What do you think of the Defender Octa?
I think they could just put the little things on the edge and just gave it more torque and been fine. I don't need a giant machine that does 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Where are you going in a Defender? Where are you going? Are you doing this off road? No.
No, absolutely not. That is not what's happening.
And do any Land Rover owners actually take their vehicles on anything worse than a gravel driveway?
No.
I think some do. Like 4 or 5.
Really?
It's like every other car. I think. There's a few who are taking it. My cousin his Land Rover, he keeps buying them because he actually takes them off road, and he didn't like the handling or the ride of 4Runner. He said it was too rough. But he's like the one guy.
Yeah.
Just him.
Takes it off road.
Ability just for him.
Just for him. Good job, Kevin.
Speaking of off-road vehicles,
yes,
who was excited about the Ineos Fusilier, the electric SUV from Ineos?
It looks really cute. I was excited, but
yeah, it's been delayed indefinitely.
Is it really indefinitely?
That's what they're saying.
Oh, I thought it was just I missed the indefinitely part.
Yeah.
Sad. Oh.
Well, so I talked to the U.S. boss, and the U.S. boss is like, EVs are coming. It's inevitable. But at the same time, the CEO of Ineos, of the car portion, is saying, well, we'll just kind of wait and see. And so I'm like, well, now you have two different people saying two different things about EVs and this company.
when the boss is the one saying we'll wait and see.
Yeah. That's when you're like, oh, well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they make like 7 cars. So they make 3 whole cars. Actually, 1 car with a bunch of different variants.
Yeah. And, the Fusilier was supposed to launch in 2027. We don't know when or if it's going to launch now. But, they decided, slowing demand for EVs and tariffs. I'm not sure what the tariffs have to do with any of this, because, I don't think they were going to make this in China, were they? I don't see anything about it being made in China.
I mean, if you're using Magna Steyr, why would you talk about China?
Yeah.
That might be a mistake in this.
Yeah. Maybe they were going to use a Chinese battery.
Yeah, some part of it was Chinese. Yeah. Some, because is it right? The components, maybe not enough of it was not Chinese.
Yeah, because they get all their stuff. I mean, the motors in the Grenadiers are, they're the inline 6 BMW motors. So it's not like, they're getting a lot of their stuff from other people who are making it. And 2027, I mean, I'm like, so, in 2035, your largest market, which is California, is going to be EV. If you want a new car. So for them, they're going to be like, all right, that's another 8 years. We don't have to do this right now.
We have to do that right now.
Yeah. And the slowing EV demand, or it's like, well, if your Tesla is slowing, for everyone else it's growing.
Yeah.
Which is expected, because at some point you can't be, if you're the only EV maker, yes, you're selling a lot of EVs, but when everyone else is making EVs, your market share is gonna shrink, because that's how things work.
Yeah. No, I mean, GM had their best their best quarter yet for EVs in the second quarter. Last week were sales results for Q2. Ford EV sales in the first half were up something like 83%, which is, still not as good as Tesla, but, they were up. Tesla was down. Hyundai was also up. Hyundai Motor Group, between the three brands, Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis, they sold over 66,000 EVs in the second quarter of the year. It's funny, Ford was bragging about being number 2 in EV sales to Tesla. Yes, Ford brand was the number 2 brand, but if you count the whole company, Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis were actually well ahead of Ford if you combine the three brands.
And of course, remember the Bolt was 67,000 before it got canned.
Yeah.
And
they still sold 8,000 Bolts in Q2 because they built a whole bunch of
selling that inventory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want, a hardcore off-roader that's electric, you'll be able to get the Jeep Recon around the end of the year, beginning of 25. By 2027, maybe Scout will be out. There's already Rivian, that's already out there. You can already buy a Rivian, and they work pretty well. And even the Cybertruck now actually has working diff locks, so you can actually kind of go off road with it.
Or you can just get the car that this car is based on, the electric G-Wagon.
Yeah.
Right.
You can just get the car that this car looks like.
Yeah.
The electric G-Wagon.
The electric G-Wagon's out this year, so.
Which is the best new G-Wagon. I even got them to admit it. It's the best new G-Wagon. It's the electric one.
All right. So,
whoops.
Starting in 2025, BMW is going to be launching a bunch of vehicles based on this Neue Class EV platform. We've already seen 2 concepts. We've seen the sedan, the 3 Series size sedan, and the SUV that is roughly X3 size, slightly larger than an X3. And now there are spy photos of a coupe based on this. What do you think of this car?
It has a weird butt.
It's kind of hard to judge.
Would you say it's a little in the middle, but it got much back?
Yeah, it's a little in the middle, but much back. Yes, look, when you look at it from the front, not so much. Even when you look at it straight from the back, but in profile, egads.
Yeah,
a little in the middle, but it got much back.
I'll be curious to see, what the side glass, because most of the side glass is covered by the camo wrap. Yeah. Be curious to see how it actually looks when that's exposed. I really like the front end of this thing, and the front 3/4 view looks really good.
From every angle but the profile, it looks kind of cool with that profile. Maybe it'll just change it once you can see that piece of glass in the back, that where the rear seats would be, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
why do we keep putting rear seats in cars? We're not going anywhere.
No, it doesn't need it. But just where they would be behind the glass that we can't see through, right in front of the really huge butt.
All right. So
you asked what I thought.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's got a butt. It's got some back.
It's a little in the middle.
Yeah,
not much back.
Thank you, Sir Mishkalot.
Yeah. Robbie, you mentioned that in 2035, everything in California is going to be electric. Maybe not. The Supreme Court last week issued a ruling that overturned a 40-year-old precedent, the so-called Chevron deference. So what this was all about was back in 1984. I think, in fact, if I recall correctly, I think it was actually might have been Antonin Scalia that wrote the original thing that they overturned. So that flaming liberal judge, Antonin Scalia, the ruling in 1884 was in a case where Chevron sued the Natural Resources Defense Council and EPA because the EPA had issued some regulations, some air quality regulations that went above and beyond what was called for by Congress. And the Supreme Court at the time ruled that that the regulation could stand and that courts should defer to federal agencies because they have expertise in these areas, and judges typically don't. And so they should listen to the knowledge of the experts at federal agencies when it comes to deciding on regulations. And that has been, the precedent for law ever since, until last week. Last week, the court majority ruled that that precedence or that precedent is no longer law. They overturned it, and now courts can do basically whatever they want if a federal agency issues rules that go beyond the scope of what is passed by Congress. So one example of this is the current fuel economy standards, the corporate average fuel economy standards that were recently finalized for 2027 to 2032. The last thing that Congress passed about this was the 2007 energy bill that called for corporate average fuel economy to be raised to 35 miles per gallon. Well, the latest standards are going to take that up into the 57, I think, miles per gallon range. So that goes well beyond what Congress called for. And so this is already starting to be challenged by opponents of these regulations. And this applies to all regulations, not just environmental regulations.
Yeah.
So another example is, the automatic emergency braking stuff we talked about a few weeks back, which in Congress called for making automatic emergency braking mandatory, but the rules that NHTSA published are pretty tough. Vehicles have to be able to apply the brakes at speeds up to 90 miles an hour to avoid collisions, and from 60 miles an hour, they have to be able to avoid a collision. That's a fairly tough standard. It's doable, but it's a tough standard. And last week, the Alliance for Automotive Innovation, the trade group that has all the automakers except for Tesla as members, announced, they are challenging this. They think that the standard is too tough and that it's going to result in more rear end collisions because new vehicles are going to be braking sooner than people expect, and all this nonsense. So, and there's already opponents of the California waiver from the Clean Air Act that are challenging the California waiver, which allows California to set a mandate for zero emission vehicles. Valero Energy, and I think there's an ethanol group as well.
American Fuel Petrochemical Manufacturers, the Kansas Corn Growers Association, and weirdly, the National Association of Convenience Stores. Did then the convenience stores not know that when you're charging your car, you're probably just going to get out and go get something to eat? Because I ate a lot of tacos this week. Because every time I had to stop to charge a car, I just I'm going to get out and go get some tacos.
Apparently, they were not aware of that, but we'll have to send them a note and let them know about that. So, based on the change in the Supreme Court stance, there's a good chance a lot of the regulations that have been passed in the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years may well get thrown out by the courts in the coming years. And so a lot of the things that we were counting on as regulations may not be the rule, may not be the law of the land for much longer.
I lived in California all my life, and I remember when the sky was just brown in LA, just crazy brown, way browner than it is here.
Back in the 90s, and thinking when I landed, holy cow, they're not kidding. The smog is terrible here. When you see it, when you land, if you had never been in it at the time, it was one of those things you saw and were like, oh man, they're not kidding. You could see it. You could literally see it.
And so this idea that it's a climate change is not an extraordinary condition within California when I'm watching fires from my backyard and is a global, not local. Well, the way LA is set up is actually around, there's so many mountains here in California that it traps everything. So Bakersfield gets a ton of smog that's from the entire valley, and the LA basin is just full of people driving. And guess what? Those cars are producing smog. And so without any sort of regulatory reason to reduce emissions, automakers can just do whatever they want. And guess what? Now everyone's got asthma.
Yeah.
Good job. Good job. Petrochemical and Kansas corn growers.
One of the other journalists at Carbuzz, where I write, Jared Rosenholtz, wrote a really cool story. I put it in the show notes, Sam, that he talked to some people sort of on both sides of what's the good and the bad from this huge decision that's been made. And he talked to SEMA, and he talked to some specialists and professors and legal people. He has a really neat story about what it all means, like, for everybody, and how it's not just a small thing. It has all these different places that it's going to touch them doing this and the ramifications of it. He really went into a lot. It's a really cool story. So I thought it was worth reading. If you're interested, definitely check it out.
That will be in the show notes when you listen to the show this week. So definitely have a link to that. All right. Let's answer some listener questions. Let's start off with Jeff D., who asked this question in the Discord. Said, and there was a good discussion going on in there, but said, would you guys have any hesitation about buying a used EV with 50 to 70,000 miles if it was only 3 to 5 years old? Obviously, I would want a battery health report, but if that checked out, what else that could be a potential catastrophe? Sure, might need new tires and maybe brake pads. Anything else to be concerned about?
3 to 5 years old. That's not
as long as if it's from a traditional OEM or an OEM that's been around for longer than 5 years, I don't see any issue. Yeah, maybe.
So
not
you're saying maybe don't buy a used Fisker?
Yeah, maybe don't buy a used Fisker. Yeah.
I don't think I would be particularly nervous about it if have it. I think I would treat it in a lot of ways like I treat buying any car that was 3 to 5 years old. I'd want somebody to check it out, make sure that it was okay. I don't think and as long as it's an automaker that's is going to be here. That's the scariest part, I guess. You're buying a Hyundai or a Kia or a Ford, like a brand new.
Yeah, you're
then you're okay. But if you're buying, if you bought a Fisker, if you're looking at something from some of the new ones still that are hanging on, but you don't know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen with Rivian. You don't know what's going to happen with Lucid. You really know what's going to go on with those. Yeah. So that would make me more nervous than worrying about the specific, is the car okay, I think.
The main one that I would be concerned with is the Nissan Leaf, because it still has an air-cooled battery.
The 5-year-old ones still have it? Man.
Yeah. They still have an air-cooled battery even today. I mean, they've improved the thermal management, but it's still an air-cooled battery. And while they don't degrade as badly as they used to, that is the one EV that I might be a little bit wary of. But if you get a good deal on it, or if you happen to live in Colorado, you can actually get a brand new Leaf lease for $19.99 a month.
What?
Yeah. Tommy at TFL did a video about this earlier this week or last week. There's a dealer in Colorado that ordered a whole bunch of base Leafs, the SV model, with the 150 mile range. And they're doing this crazy lease deal on it. No down payment. You just have to pay the acquisition fee and taxes and stuff. So it's like about $1,200 up front, all in. And then for 10,000 miles a year, for $20 a month for the lease on this thing.
That's crazy. I would just get one.
Yeah, if you need a basic commuter vehicle.
Right.
It's 150 miles of range for the base Leaf, so that's more than I drive in our EVs on like 95% of the time.
Yeah. But 50, 60,000 miles on a 3 to 5 year old EV, for almost all other EVs, you're probably going to be fine. Probably would want to get a health report on the battery. Mm-hmm. Depending on where you're buying it, if it went through Manheim Auctions, which is pretty good probability that it did. if you're buying it from a dealer or something, then they're doing battery health reports now. They do some pretty thorough testing on all the EVs that go through their auction system, and so they're giving health reports on the batteries. But you can also, take it to a dealer and have it tested, and get a health report on there. They'll probably charge you something for it, but that might be worth doing that. But other than that, pretty much any other EV, you should be fine.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay. And let's jump to Paul Kavanaugh's question, and then we'll end up with Adam's.
Okay.
His is the best.
It is the best.
So Paul Kavanaugh asks, thanks for making a wonderful show. After hearing you talk about the Maverick's affordability, thought I would point out that a dealer in Rhode Island is advertising a 2024 XLT hybrid for $45,000.
What is going on in Rhode Island?
I don't know. It is well optioned, but does include a $5,000 dealer markup, which I think even a loaded XLT isn't going to get you to 40 grand. So they probably put all kinds of other aftermarket stuff. They're probably charging you for undercoating and all kinds of other nonsense.
On the way to chilled washer fluid, $200.
Yeah. So Paul was going to try and find the name of the dealer. I haven't heard back from him on that yet. Such markups are not uncommon in New England. This price defeats the reason the Maverick was created. I would like to propose a new segment. Okay. So first of all, if you are buying any vehicle and the dealer wants to charge you a markup over sticker, just walk away.
Especially now. I feel like that whole markup era has finally come to an end. You could find another dealer.
Yeah. There's people with
thousands of dealers, and most of them do not charge markups. It's not that hard to find a dealer that doesn't charge a markup.
Yeah.
Or I think, like you're saying, the Maverick can be a little hard to find. Last I looked, it's just so there might be like, well, okay, the Maverick I want, is it that dealer? And that dealer does a $5,000 markup. I'd still consider whether that's the Maverick you want. That wait, find another dealer. If you can, because that's just such a sketchy thing to do. You don't want to get. I don't want to give that guy my business, like the dealership that does that.
Yeah,
Did you know there's a sports team called the Mavericks? I just looked up Maverick and accidentally put an S.
We know that one. What is it? Who's the Mavericks? I know that already.
Dallas.
Dallas.
Basketball.
I don't know what they play. I just they
look like basketball. I think it's basketball.
We are not sports team people, apparently.
We're not. We don't do the sports ball. And I was guessing, I'm like, those uniforms look like basketball. Wait, are they?
Don't ask us any sports questions.
Yeah, don't ask us those because we're not your people.
So just checking, a loaded Maverick XLT hybrid.
Yeah.
With pretty much all the options is only about $35,000.
Yeah, so what the heck is that dealer?
Which means that there's not only that $5,000 markup, but another $5,000 worth of other nonsense.
Assuming it has every single thing fully loaded. Yeah, look at that sticker carefully. Yeah, somebody's up to no good.
And if you see dealers doing that, let us know. We're happy to shame those dealers.
Yeah, we'll shame
Tell us their names.
Yeah.
We'll tell people not to go there.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, I'm curious because where is he? He's in New England. Where is he at?
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island. So he's a little further away from me. Okay. I'm like, is this a dealer near me that I never want to do business with? Never mind.
Paul also had something else. Says, I'd like to propose a new segment, fast food, where we discuss cookies, pies, squid, etc. Don't know that I've ever had fast food squid, although I do love calamari. But
you can get streets. Well, my husband always calls it street food, like street squid, like on a stick in some places.
That's true. In Seoul, I had all kinds of interesting street food.
See?
I don't know if I had squid, but I did have some lobster.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
Street meats.
Yeah. So where we discuss the cookies, pies, squid, etc., whatever press junket, road test associated food you've eaten. Nicole's Dining in Busan is a perfect example of what the segment could include.
There you go. I mean, I can do that. That's easy.
so Robbie, tell us a little bit more about the the tacos you had?
So there's a taqueria in Kettleman City, and it's right next to an EA station. 10 chargers, and apparently they were all working. Twice I went there, and both times I went there and got tacos.
What kind of tacos did you get? Same kind all the time?
I got carnitas tacos both times. I don't know why. I should have gotten something else. But when I was right on the outs leaving LA, I went to an EV Go station, and it's at a Target and a Ross, and there's an auto parts store, Rallies? No, not Rallies. The other one, AutoZone. Step into the zone. And around the parking lot were all these tables with coverings over them, so people wouldn't burst into flames because it's like 100 degrees, and they were all selling different types of Mexican food. And I got 2 chorizo tacos right in front of the Target.
You say chorizo. I say chorizo. You say it the right way. You say it all fancy. I'm in New Hampshire. We just call it chorizo.
I got 2 chorizo tacos in front of the Target, and they were outstanding. I got 2 tacos and a water for $6 there.
Oh,
that's at an EV Go station. I don't, you know what? I have to look it up. I'm not going to look it up, but if you're,
you got to be more prepared for this new food.
Yeah, sort of like on the northern tip of the LA area, is a EV Go station off the 405 or the 5.
Okay,
I think it was the 5. Yeah, and it was there you go. I got tacos. I got tacos.
Places where you can charge that actually have decent food. Like
I found a pizza slice place that has both Tesla and EV Go and Blink, those free charging stations near in Northern California. It's a little bit east of like Oakland.
This is the stuff people need to know.
Yes, absolutely.
Tacos, pizza, and free charging.
Tacos, pizza.
Next week I'm going to Munich with I don't know. Am I supposed to be saying
BMW?
No, but I'm going to Munich, and I'll talk about it next week. But it's I'm wait to have German food. I'm excited.
When I was in Portland last week, when the day I arrived, I went out and grabbed some lunch, and the lunch was fine. It was like I had a Reuben or something at some local pub. But then I walked over to Voodoo Donuts and had a donut, and if you're into crazy donuts, Voodoo in Portland is the place to go.
So I went there a long time ago with a friend, and we couldn't make up our mind. So we got, the 2 of us, a dozen donuts, and we each took like a bite out of each donut. Eat them all. Just like, so every donut in the box is 2 bites out of it to try all the donuts.
And then by far the best meal that we had, I was being hosted by Jaguar. The Jaguar TCS Formula E team. And we had dinner one night at this restaurant in Portland called Khan, which is a Haitian fusion place.
Ooh.
And the food was just outstanding there. This is some amazing stuff that we had. Very tasty. Apparently, I guess the chef is or the restaurant, I guess, won a James Beard Award last year. And the chef was a winner on like Top Chef Masters or something like that.
Ooh, chef that knows what he's doing.
Yeah. And I guess, if you try to make a reservation, there's like a 4-month waiting list for a reservation. But, if you can get in there, the food is really fantastic. Cool. Some very different flavors from what you might be used to.
Nice.
Palos Verde Mall, iSlice Pizza, EV Go, and Tesla chargers.
There you go.
Boom. And there's some Blink chargers, but there's probably always going to be someone on them, and they probably charge like 3 kilowatts. So,
but they're there.
So there's some food recommendations for you.
There you go. I'm all in for this segment.
Okay. Well, especially since you're not doing Road Reflected anymore. So.
I know. Now I get to do this, and I get to talk about food on this. That'd be great. Yes.
All right. So let's wrap it up with our friend of the show, Adam Jacowenko.
Adam,
long-time Patreon.
Oh my gosh. When you sent this earlier, I was like, I literally played this for my husband. We were hysterical laughing. It was the best thing ever. Wait, you guys
if you recall, last week we mentioned on the show that, if someone sends us a question, in the form of a sea shanty, we'll send them a free Wheel Bearings t-shirt from our
And
merch
something
store.
random from my office.
Oh, is that the other part? Do we both have to
Well,
find
if you want to send something random, let me know. I'll get you Adam's address and you can send it.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I'm looking around right now.
You're
I'm
going
like,
to get
what the-
random stuff from all of us, Adam.
So, like within a day after that was published, Adam sent a sea shanty with a question. So I'm going to play that right now.
Love this.
Hey, wheel bearings crew, listen up to me. I'm wondering about car brokers and what your thoughts might be. I'm tired of the dealerships, the pressure and the salesy pitch. I want a better deal, you see, one without a hitch. No more haggling, no more salesman stress. Can I leave it to a broker? They're supposed to do the rest. Will they find my perfect ride and hook me up with no downside? It's new to me, but they're designed to leave pushy salesmen behind. They find the best deals, save me time and money. No more haggling, is it all just sweet as honey? So what do you think, should I give it a try? Skip the deal or reach for the sky? Tell them what I want, they do all the work. Get me a car and avoid all the jerks. If you have experience or even just some good advice, I'd just love to know, should I do it or think twice? Thanks, Wheel Bearings crew, for all you say and all you do. Your show's my favorite, we can all agree that's true.
All right.
Yay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Adam. Oops.
Oh, starting over. It's on repeat. That's all I've been listening to for the last
That's
week.
what it is.
Yeah, I played it for my wife when I got it, and she loved it too.
That
so.
was so good. The sound effects in the background. It's like there's little like oceany sound effects, like you're at the dock
Yeah.
or something.
So have either of you ever used a broker to buy a car?
I have not used a car broker. Have you used one ever, Robbie?
No, I've never used a broker. But now if I think about it, I'm like, maybe I should. To be honest.
It seems like, from what I've heard, you just have to be careful about finding one that's reputable. Sort of that's
Mhm.
sort of the key to the whole thing. If you're just if you know somebody that's used one in your area, or you just do some research to find a car broker in your area, because some of them, I was reading about it and it was saying some of them take, like, they're supposed to help you find a car, right? You're supposed to say, this is exactly what I'm looking for. This is what I want. And they're supposed to help you find that, negotiate a deal. You drive the car, you buy the car, you're good to go. But some of them work with certain dealerships, so they might get a kickback from that dealership. So as you're looking for the best, I'm just going to throw, Ford, whatever, Maverick, they might send you to that one that had the terrible, markup, because they get a kickback from that guy, as opposed to getting a kickback from another guy down the road. They might offer a better deal. So you have to be careful to get one that is reputable, and see if you can find reviews on them to make sure that they're actually working in your best interest and not the dealerships.
They're too legit to quit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you may or may not actually save money with a broker, even if you find one that's legit.
Yeah.
So typically the way they work is there's an upfront fee that you pay, and I was reading an article from JD Power on car brokers. It's typically anywhere from $200 to $1,000. And then you give them what you want, what color, what options and everything you want. They go out, do the shopping, negotiate the price. And then in addition to that upfront fee, they typically get a percentage of whatever the savings are. So if they negotiate a price that's $3,000 below MSRP, they'll get some percentage of that $3,000 savings in addition to that upfront fee that you paid. And that could be a good deal. At the very least, you're probably not going to pay over sticker. Or, at least, when they present you a deal, make sure you check what the sticker price is for that particular configuration and make sure you aren't paying over sticker. But you should be able to save some amount of money. And the big thing is saving the hassle of dealing with salespeople, and dealing with, the F&I people and the finance and insurance and all the other nonsense that you go through at a dealership. So, there's some value to saving that hassle in addition to whatever you save on the price of the vehicle. So, but the other thing is, like Nicole said, it's, there are some that are shady. I mean, these guys they're trying to sell stuff too. And they're trying to make a buck. And in some cases they are, working with particular dealers, and they may not necessarily be getting you the best price.
That's the tricky. So look, like you can look at like Better Business Bureau, Chamber of Commerce, that kind of stuff. Like look and see what kind of ratings they have out there. If they're reputable, they should be able to have some kind of something to show you, positive reviews from other customers or something. I wouldn't just sort of go with a fly by night without researching it. And the other cool thing about it too is, aside from the cost savings, buying a car is a pain in the butt. You're going to this dealership or that dealership and you have to haggle and you're back and forth and you got to find the time to do it and life is busy. A car broker does that. So, you're getting some convenience out of it, not just the money, but the time and the hassle goes away a little bit when you deal with one. So there's more than just the money too, to make it a decent idea for a lot of people.
And, if you want a particular configuration, a particular set of options, particular colors, they can usually take care of that for you. Because sometimes trying to get a dealer, if they don't have the color you want, but another dealer 100 miles away has one, and you don't want to drive all the way to the other dealer, dealers can do trades, and they do it all the time, but sometimes they don't want to for whatever reason. And so, brokers can help arrange that kind of deal.
There you go.
All right. Thank you, Adam, so much for sending that sea shanty.
That was brilliant. We need to come up with another idea for people to do something.
Yeah.
And help us clean out our offices, because we can send away the random swag that we collect.
I have stuff here I would be happy to send away.
The Will Barron's mystery box. What do you get? Nobody knows.
Nobody knows until you open the box.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's do that for the next time somebody sends us a question in the form of a song.
Do we have to give them a theme type of song?
I think we give them another shanty, because I want to hear one more sea shanty.
One more sea shanty.
Somebody
that person will get a Will Bearings mystery box.
If anybody else can come with a sea shanty, go for it.
Yeah, but never rap, because that never works out. It's really hard to rap. People don't realize that.
Bobby's face to do that.
It's but there's a lot of other things you can do.
All right, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Recordings.